And we are back online. Can you grab the link again, Sean? Por favor. And add it at like the 10:30 time spot in here so I know where it's at. Okay, so since we can't find glance, I feel like I should make a joke about at first glance. Okay, Sean, are you willing to talk about CG API removal?
I haven't really done much homework, but since Shane is here.
Hey!
Do you remember? So we talked a little bit at the RBS cycle. There were some, I know some of the generic volume group with snapshots code, we kind of rerouted through the existing consistency group code template. Do you remember if there was cleanup we were supposed to do there to
Yeah, we
get
should,
rid of?
yeah, we should get rid of them. I think at that time, there were still some drivers implementing the old one. So I just want to make sure that, but it's already been so long.
Yeah.
We could just deprecate it and they will find out.
Well, are we talking about HTTP APIs or driver APIs?
I
Well,
was,
suppose, right, suppose the API and what kind of the driver interface is both. So, because I know like clean up some of some code, remember, you already sent me some, Shani, you already sent me some.
I think it did a little bit,
Something.
yeah, I think the reason why I brought this up at the business cycle, I was going through some of the code and looking for deprecated things that we can clean up, stuff like that. And I found a lot of code that, at least the naming of everything looked like it was specific to consistency groups.
So there's a whole bunch of drivers that still use the old.
Yeah, so the community should still stay, that part, so it's just with the driver interface and also the APIs.
I thought we deprecated and removed all that stuff a while back.
Whoa,
Yeah, but then
we
some
deprecated.
drivers are still, some drivers still using that. At that time, at least at that time, I remember, I think Nada, are you still cooking Nada?
Yes, it's
Okay. I remember they still implementing they implemented the consistent interface and then they didn't change it at that time. I don't remember. I haven't checked recently, I'm not sure if it's even since we showed what you mentioned.
Yeah, I would need to check for the impact, but for the solidifier, we only do the group consistency group.
Yeah, so we should deprecate the driver interface now. It's been so long.
Yeah, it's around for a while.
Yeah, so, so I don't know who else I remember that was doing. So we actually should do so Sean, so maybe
Yeah.
solidify some, they probably still have some consistent, still implemented the consistent group driving interface, not the generic group, but.
Okay, so maybe that's it, just going
But we
through.
can make sure, yeah, but I think it's been so long, we should say we should deprecate it.
Yeah, definitely should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that the solidifier,
It should be easy just to do social.
yeah, I know that the solidifier
You
has
are
the.
maintaining those now? Are you maintaining
Yes.
server now?
Mhm.
Okay, so maybe we can clean that up and the fact that we maintain those.
Yeah, if it's only the net driver, it will be okay.
And then for the APIs, what is the application? I mean, it was policy of how long you can deprecate the API, that takes that a long time. Can we get rid of the consistency API now? I'm not sure what's
The
the.
claim so far has been that we have to keep it in. But I don't think that's what we actually want to do, so.
We deprecated that before micro.
Oh, yeah, I did that.
I don't know.
And Actually, wasn't it a contributor behind it?
It is in country.
Well, contributor here.
Well, there's the update, consistency group update is not in the contribute yet.
Which one is that?
Okay.
Is that?
I don't think the consistency group is in the.
Either.
Oh, so the V3 API imports from the contrib V2. That's what we did. So in V3, we apparently moved it out of contrib into
Oh,
regular place.
was that a consistency group one? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But the whole contrib thing is kind of I mean, it's not a very strong argument anyway.
Yeah.
Because half of Cinder was in contrib not too long ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not follow up with that also, it doesn't know everything.
No. There's a lot of stuff in there that we should move up, right? I don't think we've been doing it.
Well, if we've marked them as deprecated,
Yeah, it's not that the place is not good.
What is?
the CG snapshot API at least, that looks like we deprecated it a year ago? Or we added a message saying it was deprecated a year ago.
Definitely, anyone is to.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Okay. Okay. Good, yeah, we have a document API about it. So, I don't know, I just. We could remove it since we said it's deprecated and it's not a microversion API, right?
Or there was the alternate approach of just routing it into the generic API.
Which is like what I think we do, right?
I'm not sure. Is it?
So right now it's already, right now it's already, the API just, it's empty container and you can go up to the channel already. It's just, we use the old API. It still works, just routing so that and code path. So we don't want to support it or remove it, I think that's the question. So it is deprecated, we remove it.
I don't think anybody really wants to. It's just that I don't think we've gone, well,
We remove it.
I don't think
I
we-
like getting rid of code.
I don't think we've gone through the exercise of how to get rid of an API feature yet. Because the claim when we started all this microversion stuff was that we basically weren't ever going to be able to do that because it was going to have to be supported in all microversions.
Yeah.
And that was what everybody said over and over and over and over.
Mhm.
Every time we talked about microversions. And I love the idea of getting rid of it, but I don't know that we can just
Okay.
delete it
Yeah,
without.
the API part is maybe not that bad because it's really empty just to route to the generic one anyway.
Yeah.
And we also do the migration, database migration. I think about what we use. It will migrate to the new big schema, the generic
yeah.
big schema.
Yeah.
So she did that part is not that, so it's maybe we should just clean up the driver.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And then there's some code in the code manager, that's the code convert into that part. If we can get rid of the
Okay.
old driver interface, then we can clean up the code manager.
Yeah, because what happens during the driver, it still have the old functions for consistency group. And I know that the volume manager just do a fallback
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
consistency group if
yeah, so so what we should do is have those drivers just implement a generic one group driver interface, and then, so we don't have units conversion. That code has this big
what
message.
drivers are we talking about?
Yeah.
Only the-
I think there's 5 or 6 of them. I was just looking.
Only the NetApp drivers? Which drivers?
I think, NetApp has some drivers too.
Extreme IO, PNX, except
Some of those are deprecated.
Huawei's got one. Pure, it's got one.
what would be the,
So the capability should still be there, but the capability is still stored in the driver skills consistency, the capability that should still be there. It's just the driver interface.
Yeah, and I think we can actually go update these ourselves if we want to, because it's mostly just moving around a couple of parameters, right? But update them.
Yeah. Or should just find out who wants to use that and send them email the mailing list. And then decide what to do.
So I guess that's probably it then. Drivers can look for things in the volume manager code that can get cleaned up. And then it can be done with this repeat method.
Since you like removing code, are you
Sure.
okay? Sickum.
it's quite a lot of them, actually. Quite a lot of drivers, the NC stereo, HP,
It's
So quite a
issue.
few, let's see, the listed a few. Huawei, IBM. I have fewer also higher.
so I think that because we did the generic approach in the volume manager, no drivers, nobody did nothing on the drivers. So,
I think one or two of them I saw, they kept some of the names, but they were just calling those methods internally to their driver for the generic.
what about if we just deprecate the API and the drivers doing the same way they do?
We don't need to even deprecate it.
Yeah.
We can, it's like 5 drivers, we can just go change the drivers and just throw out the old API. Because all we have to do is change each one of those methods to one that checks for the type being consistency group.
Mm.
And fail it if it's any other type, then do the right thing for consistency groups that they do now. It should be a pretty small amount of change and any of these drivers can do.
Mm.
I don't think we need to-
The $45 is fine, it's just, it's like a local method.
Yeah,
It's not
it should,
so-
it should be fine. I think my only concern is that if someone gets to do and has to change in other vendors' drivers.
When you ask the driver, you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jay got that now, so.
Mhm.
If we ask the driver maintainers to do it, we're going to be having the same conversation.
Yeah.
I really
yeah,
think we
yeah.
should.
Well,
That's my point.
Taking out vendors that to say, at one time we put you in the, then you will
So
find
we don't
out.
have to remove them, we can just update the drivers to call.
And because more, yeah,
And if we
and,
change the code in the volume manager, then.
yeah, and I don't think that all of them are running the CI test for consistency groups.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, since these guys are here, let's
Yep.
get back to the fun stuff.
We found glance. Yay.
So they actually went to the lost and found to ask for Cinder us.
Hey, did you find my power brick while you were there? Because I didn't have it earlier. All right. All right. It's yours, Russ Mehta.
All right, so the first thing is the we create an image volume with Ceph if we don't know the size in advance, which the current API doesn't allow you to specify. The default, what it does, it just thrashes resizing the storage as it goes by like something ridiculous.
It's like every 64K.
Yeah, so 64K, and then
Somebody on IRC said it has a 30% performance overhead to it.
yeah, so it's pretty bad. So there's been a couple of proposals. Get the links here. Yeah, so there's a glance back open. So So two things here. One's the link to the patches, solution patches out for Cinder, also out for Glance. And then there's a spec for Glance to, I think that proposal was, so the patches that are out there use changing the Glance API to allow passing size, which may not be acceptable to the Glance team. The other option would be if we just go and change the driver for Seth to resize like a big amount instead of these tiny little increments. And then at the end, do a resize to get it to the size of the actual size of the uniform when we know what it is.
Yeah, I have a pretty good gut feeling that'll fix the performance problem.
That would take care of the performance problem. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to see how it would not be massively faster to resize
Right.
5 or 6 times instead of 5 million times.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, because I think it's the current block size of what the driver is resizing is like
I think
bytes.
it's 64K, which means you probably spend more time doing RBD resizes than you do actually transferring data.
right.
Yes, I do not like the idea of pushing the size for various reasons we have been discussing for years. Why we don't want to have users setting the init size and getting it wrong. But
Well, I think we don't need to do it if it's this.
no, so couple of ideas. Either we do what Brian said and we start resizing like big chunks and then just shrink it at the end to the size. Or the other option, what we could do is just buffer it and jump a little bit more reasonable chunk sizes than 64K to the actual set. And so if we buffer 100 megs and resize right that in, that could work as well. I'm fine either way.
Choices that we buffer and then resize to the exact
Yeah.
thing at the end.
So we wouldn't need to shrink that.
Although
The
it's
shrinking
what we
is
do now,
always
it's
low.
just with a much bigger buffer.
I don't mind either way. It just
I think
storage and shrinking is always a little bit itchy.
one of those being better than the other really depends on how long it takes to do a resize and how.
Yeah.
Is that a try? I'm sure both of them would work.
Yeah, it seems like, well, if you don't have to do resize, then that's better than having to do it.
Well, you just have to decide how much memory you want things to use.
No, well, I wasn't thinking of buffering the whole image.
Just the
Just
Yeah, I mean, if you change
having
it,
a reasonable chunk size, what we kind of using buffers like that.
you change it to like 128 megs or something.
Yeah.
It'd be way better off than now.
But, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. The Ceph overhead on those so well that I'm not sure.
I'm
Is it
assuming
a
that
problem? And
it's-
is it actually a problem to shrink the object on Ceph after you have finished?
I would
Like, how much we have risk actually screwing that up?
Well, I mean, all you have to do is count how many bytes are supposed to be in there, so it should be pretty easy to get right, but I don't know. I'm not even sure that the performance impact of the resizes is really something inherent in what Ceph is doing versus just round trip time for API going into the network, just to tell it to do the resize.
That's probably it.
It might not even be the storage layer that's really the slow part.
Right. But that's what I mean. I would have been wondering as well, like I've tried to ask people who are complaining that do they have actually some data
Yeah.
to show that there is performance issues on the website on that. But yeah, that's a good point because we are specifically issuing resize on that. There is always that one API call that needs to bounce through before we send the data.
I guess the other question is, there's some stuff, can you open an RBD image in like append mode and then never call resize anyway? Like that seems obvious.
That would be probably the best way is
Yeah,
if we don't need to tell it beforehand what the size is.
seems like something.
And
that
just
is-
bring the data in and close it at the end and be happy,
Yeah. Like, makes a lot of sense.
which probably means that it's not possible.
Yeah, I don't know if that's something that RBD has, but it seems possible. So I don't know, it seems like a couple options, none of which are sounding too hard.
So should we look, first of all, if we can get it done without setting size so that we wouldn't need to resize just ever?
Well, the
And
problem
if
is-
that's not possible,
Yeah, the problem is
then
when
just
you call,
resize to something big and,
the librd create API requires a size,
okay.
which is unfortunate.
So we will need to do some resizing. first.
I don't think so. I don't think it's just, like, so we should really use one. So it's been showing up.
Yeah.
Before different cinder. We're okay. It's basically it, I think. So, I don't know, if then we could put out these patches, just, so, I'm not sure that there's anybody who, wants to pick it up.
Should we just go then, just do that part, not just treat it like that? That probably is the least risky way.
I think so, yeah,
Buffering stuff is,
you always have to write, yes.
there is always some complaints that we didn't scale our class node for this and we're running out of memory and now your cache is going to swap, so.
Yeah, so I think that's fine. Let's make it on top of bug. Maybe not the bug open focus. Let's do it.
Does the glance RBD driver set the order or anything for RBD images?
Sure.
In the glance store RBD driver, does it set maybe advanced features around what they call an order for the image?
Probably not. Spectre also. I think that driver's been updated a lot.
No, it actually does. It sets it based on the shelf size, which is actually probably the right.
So that's basically it. So
So did you reach a conclusion as to which approach you want to take?
I think roughly, but the main thing is we'll fix the plant store, and it's not.
It's not really seen the problem. We get the glance store fixed and,
Okay,
yeah.
No change.
So we don't want to have people who synthesize it,
okay,
image record, so we rather just do it on the store side and record the actual image size after the data has passed through.
okay.
So you guys don't need to worry about it, we get it fixed and released and everyone can be happy.
Go glance, go glance. Okay, good. Thank you. Now I have a feeling that this one is not going to go smoothly and it's going to, I'll think positively though.
Yeah, so.
Encrypted volume key management.
Yeah, so
Is this the same discussion that we started yesterday too? Or is it
Yeah, I think
related?
So I've had a proposal out for a while. Well, I've had a bug report out for a while, technically, that we never did. The Glance part of my previous work with Cinder volumes getting uploaded to Glance.
Okay.
Which is that, let me back up a little bit here. So in Cinder encrypted volumes, we have this concept that every volume and Glance image, when you upload a volume to an image, has an encryption key for that object. And anytime you copy a volume to another volume, you get a new key. If you upload a Cinder volume to Glance, you get a new key for it in the Glance image that's stashed in the Glance metadata. The problem currently is that if you're using an HSM to store Barbican keys, you create Glance images from encrypted Cinder volumes, which creates new keys in the HSM. And then when you delete the Glance image, nobody knows to go delete the key from the HSM, and it just gets left there forever. So when I did all this work in Cinder a while ago on image upload with encrypted volumes, the assumption was that Glance was going to start looking at the encryption key attached to the image, and then when you delete an image, it would go through Castellan into Barbican and delete the key out of the HSM. So then it gives away
Wow.
security guys.
So we started talking about this quite a bit yesterday.
Yeah, so
And one of the
someone-
ideas that someone threw around was just to do reference counting
So I
on
heard
that key instead of copying it.
So I heard a little bit about that, and I don't know all of the details, but what the proposal, as I heard it, has a handful of issues. I guess. So we got Ade from Barbican. Who else? Douglas, right?
So I wonder,
So,
should we quickly catch up, Eric, on what we talked about yesterday?
well, what's the general? Yeah, just go through it. So-
Okay.
Before we do that, I think the one thing about the Cinder scheme, so the user just says, hey, give me an encrypted volume, but they don't have to supply a password or anything, right, for the long secret.
Right.
That's all handled behind the scenes. So it's a slightly different case than the GPG key, where you got it outside somewhere and you're encrypting first and then uploading.
Well, can we get into the whole GPG thing after the first?
Sure.
Because I think that's a whole other thing that's separate from. Well, I don't know. What did everybody design yesterday when I was not here? I guess is the question.
So,
Could someone prompt the Etherpad link from the yesterday's fishbowl session?
oh, yeah.
That's
that'd be
probably
good.
the easiest one to get quickly through what was
And,
agreed.
and then it's an opportunity
Agreed
for
by,
Lucy to run it, make sure we're all on the same page,
Exactly.
right? I'm ignoring you, okay. No.
On the volume side of things, we ran through a couple of different scenarios as well too, on our event. So that might be useful as well too, to kind of talk about how the sequence would be managed potentially on the volume side.
So here was the workflow we came up with that,
Exactly. Right now, morning we talked a little bit about how to handle the keys for this kind of workflows and maybe we should also do about.
Yeah. I think yes.
Basically, there are two workflows we identified for the potential encryption. One thing is the user creates key, and then
that the client or anything encrypt this image, that would be exhausted. Then when the image will be deleted, somehow the key should not be deleted because it is a great. Another thing is if the CLI creates the key on behalf of the user. So the user just say encrypt and I don't care. Case, it would be nice to have class manage the lifecycle. And we came up with a few ideas and maybe a team.
Sure.
Is that
And so, I'll probably, might be aware of it. Okay, yeah. Okay, so, somewhere around line 136 is the option. So you look up there. So line about 47. So there are two different options over here. Right? The first option is that the user provides a key, right? And they provide a key either by uploading a key login or by either uploading a key login or by generating a key login for a reference ID key login. And then right about line 42 or so, you're doing some sort of openstack-cinder encryption, how you like to do it, and you're passing a key ID login. Right? At that point, the CLI, my CLI realizes the user's providing the key. And so maybe you end up passing the parameter, like user provided key equals true or something like that to class, which is ultimately going to be stored somewhere in your share. The reason that this is important is that it's probably the case that in this case you don't want, when you delete the class image, you don't want to delete that key because it's used. So when Glance gets to the point, so the other thing that will happen is that we're adding an ability to register as a consumer of a contiguous. And so Glance, when it does school buildings metadata and so on, will register the volume as a consumer for that activities. And when you go to delete the image, you unregister as a consumer, but you don't delete the receiver because it's the user.
So neither of these cases actually describe the feature that we already have now in Cinder that's not implemented completely.
Okay. So
I'm trying to figure out where, because it's kind of going a few different paths feature-wise. The thing that we have already shipped in Cinder is that when you upload an encrypted volume to Glance, we clone a Barbican key, and the Glance image refers to that Barbican key. And the assumption was that when you deleted the Glance image, Glance would then call out the Barbican to delete that key. And that's the part that hasn't happened yet. So that's the same model we use in Cinder when you create a volume and it gets a key built for it, and you delete the volume and it deletes the key from Barbican. But I think that may be a whole different scenario from user-provided keys.
And the problem that we have is that we have no way of knowing.
But you
So-
don't have a way of knowing. It's
So
all we have to do.
only way we can ensure that is that when we get that request, is that we clone that key again so that we know who created the key ID, and you clean up the one that you used to sending the image to Glance,
It's not
because
true.
you created that and it's your responsibility, because we have no idea if
You
it
have a
was
way to
Cinder
know.
or
You
user.
store in the image metadata a reference to the key. If we have 3 or 4 different cases of keys, maybe we need a flag that says delete it, don't delete it, whatever. But it is not hard to attach metadata to a glance image that says this is a key, and when you delete the image, get rid of the key. I don't know why that's something that's a large ask for glance to do. Because you end up with a whole mess of other problems if you want something outside of glance to do that for you. I mean, who's going to delete the key from an image that was created from a cinder block?
The owner of the key.
Do what?
The owner of the key.
The owner of the key is no longer going to even know where it is because they didn't really care where it was. They want to deal with volumes and images, not keys. You're offloading a ton of work to the user for something that Cinder doesn't offload to the user now because the user doesn't care. The user just says, give me an encrypted thing, and it encrypts it, and it works fine. And Cinder manages the mechanics of the key and everything that it does. And I think that's kind of the right model to do this stuff with.
So do we, on the Cinder side, do we need to add that metadata to say whether we expect them to delete or not?
Well, my assumption was that since we invented that metadata for this Cinder feature, that it was going to just always do that because it's called Cinder encryption key ID, which was supposed to mean this key is following the Cinder model of glance image.
And it's always safe then for Glance to know that that can be deleted when the image is deleted.
That is the theory. The problem, of course, since we've taken a year to implement the delete part in Glance, is that now users want to go upload images by hand with keys. And then the question is whether the user was smart enough to realize they needed to clone it versus not.
And that's exactly my problem is that.
That's only a problem because Glance didn't do this
legal.
last year. That's only a problem because Glance didn't do this last year. The whole system was designed to say, this key is managed by Cinder, so we know how it works. Don't touch it.
So when Cinder's uploading the image, which is it using the user's credentials?
It uses, I think it usually is using the user's credentials, yeah.
So I wonder if we could do something with property protections so that,
Well, we would need service tokens for that, to make sure that it came from Cinder and not the user. And we don't have that.
well, either that or.
And just prevent user ever adding the key manually.
Yeah.
That we would know that it came from Cinder and it's handled properly. And when we delete that key, we don't suddenly want the user accessing ton of other resources when they happen to use the same key ID. That's my biggest worry. Like literally, if we cannot trust that it came from Cinder and it's cloned only for that purpose, we end up, at some point there is a stupid user, we end up causing data loss. And I don't want to take the responsibility for that.
We can solve the problem of being responsible for that however we want to solve it, as long as we can decide that at some point, with keys that are identified in some fashion, Glance will know how to do them. I mean, that's the main thing that needs to happen. We could come up with a whole list of what the criteria are for when that happens, and that's fine. But I mean, the general idea still seems to be fairly up in the air.
All right, so the first thing is just, would Glance be willing, so assuming that we have a sufficiently clear way to identify a deletable key, would Glance have any problem calling borrow again to delete it when the page was deleted?
I don't think that's a problem.
Okay.
So my main problem is that there, so we are calling it as a just encryption key. And only thing is that Cinder is expecting us to delete it, user might not. And that's the problem. If we go and just delete user resources, we are in a ditch.
Is there a requirement that the user can provide a key if they want to?
Well, the problem is that there is no way to prevent it anymore.
Because
Not from the Cinder model.
There's data on there. So you could put this Cinder encryption key ID in the image that you own. Which would be kind of stupid. So you could do it.
Well,
And then
if the user happens to have the image on their local machine, they want to upload it to Glance, let's say to another user so that they can create encrypted single bond directly out of it. There is valid reason why the user would do that, and there is.
Except they have to give a key for, that was owned by the other user who's using the image, right? Because otherwise you can't decrypt, because, right, this can't work with shared images, if you're making that.
Yeah, but that's my point. The user will manually at that point put the key ID that corresponds to the encryption,
Oh, I see.
to the encryption keys, what is needed for that image.
Right.
But we don't have a guarantee at that point that it's a clone or copy of that, that recorded barbican that we can safely delete.
The guarantee was that users weren't supposed to go fill in fields called sender encryption key ID. That was the guarantee. It's
Yeah,
not
but
a very
there's no
strong
way to
guarantee.
prevent it.
Well, we can make a way to prevent it. We can rename the field to sender encryption key ID that will be deleted when you're not looking. I don't care how you do it. I mean, we can change it to do whatever we need to do.
Since that was a plan, but it wasn't implemented on the glance side at the time, and now there's a risk, should we rename that field and make sure that it lands in glance first before Cinder starts using that, so that we don't have a window where someone might.
Or should we just drop a extra boolean on a boolean metadata, delete Cinder encryption key
Well,
to false?
That's kind of what I was thinking, and then anybody who's using the current code, it kind of keeps doing what it's doing now.
Yeah.
And newer deployments opt into this more verified, keep them.
Yeah, and then when you set it, then it doesn't matter if it's a Cinder who sets it or if it's a user who sets it. They clearly state that I want that key deleted.
Well, you're still assuming that the user has any idea what it means when they do that, which is a lot to ask in general. But yeah, I mean it's better.
At least it's clear.
Right, so the Cinder will just start writing delete me, or whatever, along with the other key, and then away we go. Okay.
And then it doesn't need to have anything to do with the rest of the
Right,
work.
so it's
What
also-
we were talking about yesterday morning. Because this is Cinder special sauce, unless Cinder wants to actually change the behavior and handle your own images from encrypted volumes with the same manner that the rest of the encrypted resources are handled.
Well, I think this feature has, the user just says, I want encryption.
Yeah.
And then they don't deal with any of the other stuff, so I think it probably makes sense to keep it different thing. The sticking point's just been, we've made it so seamless that there's no way to know what to delete. So that's the thing. All right, so this sounds good, so we implement, so we'll do another Cinder underscore, up with a suitable name that makes it obvious what that does.
Yeah.
Well, it won't be called Cinder now, because probably it'll be more generic than that.
Oh, okay.
Because everybody wants to use this by hand outside of, they want to handcraft glance images and set this field. As soon as we ship this as a Cinder feature, we have customers that started doing it by hand. And we were saying, well, we didn't test or support that, but everybody wants to do it anyway.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, just to get a generic field.
So just delete, so this becomes a complete class.
But I don't know, I mean, we can figure out the name later.
Yeah, that's easy, but if we can agree that we just flag it with something that is really clearly named properly, that even the like 99% of the dumbest users will understand what's happening if they set it. If that's agreeable, I'm okay going forward with that, but I just don't want to go and delete someone else's resources without being really, really clear why we are doing it.
All right, let's slap together a point spec and that layer.
I mean, presumably the glance code is going to be very similar to the Cinder code that just goes through custom and has similar options and stuff.
Yeah, we already consumed Castile for the image signature verification stuff, so
Oh, that's right.
no new dependencies. Okay.
You said you'd put together the spec?
I saw you already too deep me.
Too late.
I did.
Wasn't told.
Well, and we may need a cinder spec to handle the
So add
transition from the old to the new thing and make sure we cover all the cases there correctly. Or maybe there's not a lot we have to cover.
I think it's just writing the metadata on there.
Yeah.
Write the other one.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the single change just to add one extra image property when you are doing it at that point. It's clear. And then you can add
You're doing
documentation
that part?
that
Okay.
if user wants, after upgrade, if user wants to get those keys cleared, go and quote that delete cinder encryption key into the image properties, and when the image get deleted, we clean it out for them.
Yeah, so sort of.
Do you have,
But we don't just suddenly start doing it without telling anyone.
do you have like a Lance, change ownership feature like Cinder has for volume transfer? Because if we had to jump through a bunch of hoops in Cinder where, cases where you have the service modifying Barbican keys, or if you transfer keys from one user to another, you have to go manipulate Barbican ACLs to make sure the right people can touch the keys. I don't know if there's a case where that's going to come up in the claim.
Most likely, so I have no idea if you guys have tested it, what happens when you share encrypted image and
Well,
you try to create a volume out of that?
That's what I was just thinking is, if you have a public image, you would have to make sure that the key is readable by everybody who's going to consume the image.
And that sounds like really great use case for encrypted image when you need to make the key secret readable for everyone as well.
Oh, it's still,
Why to encrypt in the first place?
because it helps if my steals your hard drives. It's still hidden.
So it'd be the same for community images also, and then also for image sharing. You'd have to share out your secrets. somehow.
Yeah, so if you did image sharing, you'd have to clone or grant ACLs or, so I don't know how that feature works.
Yeah,
You have to do something.
we would just assume that everybody wants to do that.
Awesome.
So you're sharing between different projects or different users of different projects.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you guys
So
need
that's
that
after the even signature.
Do we what?
It's better, 'cause it's all public.
sharing of the?
Verify that it's citizens can approve and use that.
No, I don't think we need it for Lance. I was just saying that we
Yeah,
had.
no, what I'm saying is, how about we don't worry about it, and we just make it clear that if there is single volume encryption key, that image cannot be shared nor made public, and we don't need to ever worry about that. Like if you have encrypted,
But you have to worry about it enough to go
So maybe it's just about.
fail in the right case or something when somebody tries to do something that's not supported. You have to worry about it, I think, because you have features like shared images.
no, but that's what I'm asking, like,
Yeah.
is it a problem if we document it and actually block sharing or publicizing images that are encrypted?
So if there's a Cinder encryption key and they're trying to make it public, say, no, you
Yeah.
can't do that.
Exactly.
I like that.
You probably want to make it optional for the people who are going to go do all that ACL stuff to make it work, but it's probably a good idea.
So I think if I allow shared encrypted images.
But that would just mean that we don't need to ask Lance, start worrying what the hell we are doing with that key and figuring how we automate those ACLs to work properly.
I don't know enough about the whole feature list of plans to know if you have to worry about it.
I think it'd be good to start without allowing those public ones, and then if there is something that comes along with a valid use case of why they need to have that functionality, then we can see about adding a.
Config
option
option,
or
so
something.
they go.
Yeah, so by default, we don't allow it.
Yeah.
But if they know what they're doing and really need to do it, then they can enable it.
I mean, I can almost guarantee you somebody's going to show up and say they need to encrypt it to pass some certification suite of some sort for security checks. Whether it makes
Would
sense.
they have
or not.
public images?
I'm not saying that would make sense. I'm just saying someone's definitely going to show up and say they need it.
But that might be good 3-4 years from now, knowing how old code the deployments are actually running, so
Oh, it's unicorn. Thinking the unicorn release is coming up fast. Yeah.
Unless the unicorn will be the due release actually next cycle on.
That's what I mean, it's gonna have all the good stuff. I mean, the Z unicorn.
Yeah, exactly.
The unicorn release, that's what we're calling you right now.
Well, that's what we have been calling it for past like few years. Whatever has been looking like, oh, this would be great, but we don't have time for it. We'll do it in unicorn release. And then we suddenly realized, like, when we went to train, like, crap, the U is next one. I hope it's not named unicorn. We have promised a hell of a lot of stuff in there.
Because they're having trouble finding a name for it.
I don't think Mandarin has unicorns.
Oh, okay.
So you're safe.
Oh,
I have a quick question for the guys from Barbican. Maybe it's just a bit out of the topic, but is it possible to use Barbican to create storage credentials? It would be possible because I have a customer that is complaining about having to lay the credentials using the password on Seagate.com.
So I actually added this to our list earlier. In theory, you can do this with an Oslo config Castellan driver, and it's been on my to-do list to go see if it actually works. Have you guys tried
These are credentials that they're non-tenant specific, right? These are.
Yeah,
right things. So, I mean, Barbican is specifically for use with tenant, for connections with C++.
Or generic page.
But you can use Castellan, and this is stuff that's been added on the config. Use Castellan to the wallet to store those kind of secrets and have records within your config. Oslo knows to go to Castellan to store stuff.
Oh, so then we need to change in Cinder or.
It probably does need some small changes. We've had some requests for this for many years, actually, in our product. And it's on my to-do list to go explore this soon to see how this Oslo config driver actually works. But, the theory is that you would write like a Barbican reference or ID in cinder.com. And then when Cinder is bootstrapped in the config, it would load it up to know how to talk to Barbican and then go.
We talked about that in yesterday's Oslo project update.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with some examples of this is how you set it up.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think that was recorded if you want
Yeah, I mean, that
What was
Oslo,
that? The
to.
session?
The Oslo project update.
Okay.
because that Oslo config driver definitely looks like the right way to do it. I just haven't gone and messed with it enough to see if it.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of it. I think it's great.
That's what landed, I think, in most of them.
Yeah. But I'm assuming we'll need a minimal amount of code in Cinder to do something to get that to work. Probably not a ton.
Yeah.
For Cinder, it's mostly for passwords for the SANs, for backends is the main thing people want it for. I'm sure there's a handful of other cases that might be useful too.
Yeah, I think at least from a lot of them, probably going to start looking into scores and stuff.
Yeah.
The question, at least the proposal is where to score the other one.
Right. So we didn't really finish with the other features that we started talking about for glance image stuff. Because I directed us over to this thing, I think, but all the user provided key, glance created key, was there still something to figure out on that side? Or did that mostly happen already?
What about the stuff that we were talking about before? That, I mean, we need to talk with plans, guys, because, but I think it's more than plan specific.
I think that's not the right place. Like, if you want to do it,
I guess Cinder's good. Will Cinder need to consume those keys at all?
Well, the big piece that was interesting in this stuff for Cinder was this concept of using GPG instead of LUX to encrypt stuff, which I'm still kind of skeptical about. I don't know that we ever really got to the end of that whole, figuring out that whole feature.
So maybe you do need to continue your discussion here while Eric's here.
But whatever people think we need to talk about.
The thing is, we wanted to use PTG because we wanted to stream the data from an encrypted image into the volume, permanence mode, without having to decrypt it first and cache it, because caching. So GPT allows to write stream along from the encrypted image right into the encrypted.
I think the thing I didn't know was whether, I think there may be a way to achieve the same thing with queuing your image convert if you pass the right encryption arguments into it to get it to decrypt images. The streaming thing, I don't know if the streaming is really a requirement if you're writing to something that's a block device anyway. Because it's not so much that it needs to be streamable, just as it's more that you don't want it all landing on the file system in a temporary directory.
It has to land in temporary file system, conflict host or what it must stream it decrypt it first and then put it into permanence module. If we want to avoid this.
Yeah, I mean, my counter proposal is that I think you can maybe avoid it without having to use GPG. And then the question is, why bring GPG into it when we already have Lux that we're using everywhere else?
That's it's not possible.
I think it's possible. I haven't looked at it enough to find out if I'm right or
I'm interested if you find out. Tell me about it. But, we've tried it. It didn't work for us.
Okay, well, I can go explore it and see if I can figure out what I'm thinking about there. The problem with the GPG thing too, well, it actually gets into the next topic. I mean, one of the nice things about Lux is that you can change keys. If you encrypt it with GPG, I think you lose that ability to do that, which for the cases you're using it for, I don't know if that matters or not.
Check. There is a link for the dinner details in the line item.
Okay, are you trying tonight or tomorrow night? Tonight. Okay.
So whoever wants to join, feel free.
Did you put it in our Etherpad?
Yes, it's on your radar.
Okay.
It's at the top there before the channel. They're just about proposed topics.
There we go. Thank you.
Thanks. Hopefully we get those couple of things sorted. So
All right.
I think we'll see you guys next time tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. Thanks for stopping by.
So the next one may be of interest to the Barbican guys. I'm not sure. Do we want to start on the next?
Yep.
topic? So, so this is filling in kind of a gap that we can do better on encryption for cinder volumes, which is that since we use Lux, what we, I think, should be doing, anytime we clone a volume or upload a volume glance and possibly backup, I haven't looked at backup yet. We should go into the Lux metadata and rekey it with a different key. So we'll just generate a new Barbican key, add it to the Lux key slots, make sure it works, and then throw out the one that it used to have. And the nice thing about that is the current scheme, anytime you clone a volume or transfer a volume to another tenant, you use the same key, which means if somebody's clever, they can grab the encryption key for the source volume and then go unlock everything that was cloned from it afterwards. And so the proposal is really anytime we do a clone or transfer or upload to glance to mount the encryption layer and change the key on it to a new key to get it fully disconnected from the previous access to the previous key that was used to encrypt it. I think design conceptually, this is fairly straightforward. It's probably going to be quite a bit of code to make it work. But,
So when we copy, we are re-encrypting basically. At that
well,
point.
so that's the nice thing is the way Lux works. You don't actually have to re-encrypt the data, so you don't lose any of your like sharing of copy on write space usage, because the way Lux encryption actually works is that there's a key that's used to encrypt all the data, and that key is encrypted by these outer keys. And when you load a Lux volume, you give it a key which then decrypts the encryption key for the data, and then you can decrypt the data with that. So the nice thing about that is it means you can change the key so that you can't unlock it with the previous encryption key, but you don't have to re-encrypt it or do a bunch of IO or anything.
I say that's cool.
So it should actually, it doesn't.
Remove the old key from us.
Yeah.
There are multiple slots.
Yeah, I think there's like 8 slots in there by default. And then the trick with that is like, we probably need to add the new key to it and then make sure we can actually unlock it with the new key and then delete the old key. We'll have to do a whole sequence of stuff to make sure it's like definitely worked when we do it. But it shouldn't have any particularly big performance applications other than doing an extra amount of the volume whenever we're doing these operations. And I kind of suspect that people assume that we do this already, and probably anybody that looks into this in depth is probably wondering why we're not already doing this, because it seems like a pretty obvious thing to me that we should do, just for a more complete security kind of picture with this stuff.
Certainly makes sense when you transfer the function.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you have the old key.
Yeah. Well, and we already generate a new Barbican key every time we do a clone or upload anyway.
Oh,
it's just that it's a copy of the old key.
Yeah.
So we're already consuming this many keys in Barbican now. This is just about making them actually be different keys.
When you transfer ownership will hold the snapshots.
The snapshots all just share the encryption key for the volume. I think the Cinder database has this concept of like snapshots having an encryption key ID, but they don't really actually have one. They just use the one for the volume.
Yeah, we have new ways to do that in this week.
Yeah, that's probably something we need to clean up in the VB schema because it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. that be if it was rekey?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that whole piece of this that I thought through. So actually, if you rekey a volume that has snapshots,
Snapshots are still.
you have to change the key on the snapshot to be the new key, but then the volume has to keep the old one. Or
No,
no, it's
other
the
way
other
around.
way. The other way.
Yeah. So the existing snapshots, we're tracking the key that was used for their encryption.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because they're still encrypted with the old key, even current volume is encrypted with the new key.
Yeah, I'm distinctly remembering now when I thought through this a few months ago and forgot about it. Yes, because it made life harder. But if you have snapshots, you have to do a lot more complicated things with this actually to make it work. But you can't clone a volume with snapshots anyway, so we might have an easy out for a lot of that stuff. Because we actually don't, I guess we do transfers with snapshots now. So yeah, I'll have to go through any place that we're doing this and see how it works. So.
Yeah, snapshot metadata table values.
Well, maybe we actually need to use it now.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe that's why it was there. Somebody thought of this years ago. Just never did. So I don't know. This is probably going to be one of my higher priority things for training to work on. So I'll go draw up a spec on how to do this.
Okay. Sounds good. So we've gotten through our morning topics with an hour to spare. Do people want to break? Do we want to pull some of the added topics and push forward until lunch?
We can get a little ahead, that might be good.
Okay. So let's take the topics that were added up here and drop them in before lunch and start talking about them then.
Oh, this again.
Okay, so who added backup tests notification leaking?
I strongly agree that somebody should go fix this. Although apparently, so far, nobody has wanted to stare at it.
Actually, I added that.
Okay. Leakage is bad.
This has only been causing random page failures for like 3 years at this point.
Okay.
And we've started working around it by making our assertions weaker, which actually fixes most of the failures.
What are you leaking?
So the fundamental thing that's going on here is we have a bunch of unit tests that call some path through the volume service or backup service or whatever. And they try to test to see that certain notifications were generated for like volume create, volume delete, backup create, or whatever. What happens is the way that our unit tests are written, somebody somewhere in a place that nobody has gone and tracked down yet, in some test, spawns a thread that runs like the backup manager as a service. And the way that we do this notification test stuff, which I've been trying to undo actually, but the way we do some of it is we have a variable that's in the unit test, I think, that we hook a fake notifier to. And every time you send a notification, it gets appended to this list of notifications that were generated. But the problem is some test loses track of some thread for the backup service somewhere, and it's running and sending backup progress notifications that show up in all these unrelated unit tests. And so the fix so far has been to change the assertions from assert that we see volume create start, volume create end, to assert that those two are in there and ignore all the other ones, which is mostly, good enough for what we're testing here, but it's obviously kind of hacky.
Can't you just in the base test class mock the notification call?
So that's part of what I was doing, and I did that in some places. The problem is these are coming from some test that doesn't do anything with notifications itself. And it's like code that's just running somewhere, and nobody has tracked down which test it is.
So if it's mocked in the base test class, then it shouldn't be bad.
Well, the problem is, I think the way that we mock it, it's mocked in a way where like everything that runs in that same test runner thread like shares the same variable, I think, for where the notifications are stored, which is not great. My answer was that we should go through, and instead of having a fake notifier and then reading what we record from a fake notifier, just mock out the notification send calls.
Well, that's what I was saying, just mock out that call in the base.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who's calling, you can just validate that it's called.
We probably should do this. Rajat suggested a patch that I -2'd, and I still think it's wrong because this patch tried to fix this by adding blocks so that certain unit tests didn't run on top of each other. But that's not a good way to go about this. I mean, yeah, it might help, but that's kind of a different thing. Yeah, what Sean's saying probably is a good idea, that if we mock this out for all tests, and then in the tests we care about, we do some assertions on the call side instead of what we recorded in the notification bus side. That should, I think, fix this. I'm pretty sure I did that in some tests already. The other part of this, of course, was why are we running a unit test that runs so much of the backup service that we apparently don't know what's running where, and we don't tell it to stop running when we go to the next test, because it apparently keeps doing stuff in the background, which is also concerning. But fixing a lot of that stuff is really just somebody needs to spend a lot of hours in the test fixing stuff. And I used to do a lot of that, but I haven't done as much of it lately.
Connecting to a lot if it's starting if the backup service started.
Yeah, that might be the right answer. So just for kind of completeness, if there is a gate failure now, we generally can respond to it by going and moving to the weaker assertions, which will make sure that that particular test never fails like this again. You do have a weaker assertion, but how much you care about the assertion of these two notifications as opposed to these two plus this other unrelated backup one is kind of like, I mean, it's not perfect, but it also doesn't really matter that much. But it probably means that eventually this backup thread is going to go break something that's not related to notifications. We'll have a whole different set of issues if we don't actually fix that part. So I don't know. I was making a full-time hobby a while ago of fixing unit tests, and I think I finally just burned out on it. I don't do it as much anymore. But if anybody really would like to do that, there's an infinite amount of stuff in there to fix for sure.
You're a real person could do it.
She's vanished.
She knew it was coming. I thought she was real. Did anybody else see her? Or is it like Amrath? Yeah, I was gonna say, is it like Amrath who he's the only person that can see him? I'd be walking around the summit and all of a sudden he'd be there just staring at me. Didn't say anything.
I saw that happen.
And it didn't get really weird until I'm walking past breakfast one morning and he's just in the window. I'm like, WTF. And that was the last time I saw him. Nobody has claimed to have seen him, so. And I swear I've not tried the local wares. That is not what caused it.
I guess it's the next, considering the funds for this next person that went into it should probably, or continue with the leak assertion. Correct.
Well, that's what we need to do to keep the gate from
Okay.
burning to the ground. But,
Because
it's so weird. We'll go a
Game
long-
of Thrones
Well,
stuff.
we'll go a long time without this, like, without anyone noticing this happening, and then all of a sudden it happens like 8 times in one day. And the problem is that I can never reproduce it locally. Like, for some reason on my machine, it like never happens. It only happens in the gate. I don't know why. There are some ideas if somebody really wants to debug this that I had about. You can go into. I did something like I went into the notifier call and I started attaching thread backtrace objects into all the notifications so that you could see where they came from. And so if somebody actually does try to take this on, I probably have some ideas in the back of my head from a while ago about how to investigate it. It's pretty hard when you can't actually reproduce it on your local machine to do a whole lot with it. Maybe it's a pipeline too far.
Well, I did it with 537 tests,
Oh,
but all the other ones passed.
yeah.
Way to dash his hope so quickly. So do we have a to-do out of this?
Motivate Rich out to fix it.
Damn.
I'm not sure what the to-do is. I mean, we know we know it stinks. It's not exactly a fun effort for anybody to do, for sure.
I find you motivational, Eric, so I'll leave it. There we go.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that's going to be by the time I read that later, but we'll see.
Well, it's a little Easter egg that you can enjoy later. Okay. If there's nothing more we can do there.
I will just say the other reason this is important is because distributions like RDO like to run OpenStack unit tests as part of the packaging process, and they can't run cinders because it fails all the time. A lot of other projects they actually run them for, but yeah.
The acme is Cinder just works according to our users, so don't test it, but it works. Okay, so should we talk about optional dependency install mechanism? That sounds like Walt. Is that you?
That one. Yeah. So one of the pain points that I think we have with providing better support for Cinder in containers is when you build an image for a container to run like CVol, and you want to run one of the drivers. Well, some of the drivers in Cinder have external library dependencies.
Yeah.
And this has kind of been just a hand-waving event for years now. And not having any way of installing those dependencies and finding them unless you just read the documentation, which you should do, but sucks anyway. So in talking with the Helm guys, they turned me on to a feature of setup tools that allows you to declare extras in your setup.conf, setup config, that allows you to optionally install dependencies when you pip install a package. So I figured this all out last night and put up a patch basically so that way if you want to install Cinder, but also the 3-par driver, because you're going to run 3-par as your back end, you can do a pip install Cinder and put in brackets HP 3-par, and it will install all of the dependencies of Cinder plus the declared dependency for the 3-par driver. And I added support for all of them that worked from the list of dependencies that are in the driver requirements.txt file. Which we have, and that's just been a human readable, non-consumable file forever. So I converted as much as I could from that into the setup config. But there are some drivers in there that won't work, that don't work, and may never work with respect to this. One of the big ones is Ceph, of course, because the external dependencies for Ceph are not installable by Pipey. Because they require C bindings for a lot of Ceph stuff that it does, which is a bummer. And some of the other drivers, DRBD, I think that one's deprecated, which is good because none of those dependencies are installable anywhere. And they've renamed them to LinBit or some nonsense. And, LinStore.
Does that one work?
And that one does not work. Because I could not find anywhere where DRBD manage exists anywhere. So, and there was another one that I couldn't, like store pool or something like that. One of the other ones that I listed in the comments for the patch wouldn't install and work at all in Python 3, which is kind of concerning.
Everybody's gonna notice that pretty soon.
Yeah, yep. So that's why I called that one out as well. But so what I'm hoping for is if this merges is that we'll be able to add hooks in the Ansible scripts that build for Cola to build the images, is that we can build an image for the 3-par Cinder volume service, because they break them out into not just CVol, but CVol plus a driver. So we could support at least the list that's in here. Now I'm assuming that the rest of the drivers that we have in Tree don't require external libraries, or they just haven't listed them for whatever reason. But
well, drivers that require CLIs are interesting because it's a whole different thing. But I mean, when I started this drivers requirements.txt thing, I think the idea was that we would eventually do stuff like this. So it makes a lot of sense to me.
So the only thing that the only drawback of this is that it only supports Pipey installable Python packages, which the majority of those entries in the driver requirements do have.
Is there some concept of doing this same kind of thing with BinDep for like the other guys?
I haven't looked into that yet.
Because that might be a way to do some of the other ones. But even just doing this, I think is pretty good.
Yeah, if pip and BinDep stuff worked, then I think that would be great. Or some other mechanism for using BinDep would solve the Ceph issue and some of the others.
Yeah, I mean, the Ceph one's not going to change anytime soon.
No. But that's the one that I would really like to get working.
Yeah.
Well, looking at the requirements job failure, you're going to have the issue that you're going to have to get all of these added into openstack requirements before we can put them in our requirements.
So we're failing again. I've been checking.
So it
I haven't done
actually
these all checks.
checks the extras stuff in that job.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good that it does that. I wouldn't have figured that anybody was checking it.
Okay. All right. So I'll have to go through and add a patch to add all those in there to get all this, the whole suite working. But so anyway, the whole driver behind all this is to get better support for running Cinder in containers, which everyone I think is going to want to do at some point. So
How did it mean the version of the driver to a specific point in time? You can only on the Cinder releases? Because you have some versions and then you have to pin a version to a set of dependencies, right?
Well, the drivers come with Cinder, so whatever version of that external library that they needed at the time that Cinder shipped is what should be in the setup config.
Yeah, the tricky part is making sure that a year from now, some of these maintainers actually update these
That
versions.
would be my question. Because
Yeah.
if you backport something, then you.
And they need a new client then, yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Do we do versions for the stable versions?
For Cinder itself,
The
I
stable branches?
don't know.
Do we do what?
Versions? Because, yeah, minor versions for stable branches, because I know the Cinder has the versions for each release. But for example, after the release goes stable, if I go and do a backport, it's supposed to be a new version, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We do, but I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not following what that has to do with this though.
Yeah, it just.
It looks like we do
Have to
stable
be-
versions. I see 13.01, 13.02, 13.03.
Yeah, I mean, we've always,
Yeah, so I think we're okay.
How does it help run stable in containers?
It helps with building the images, right? Because currently you have to just know if you want to run like 3par as a backend, you just have to know.
Oh, you mean stable container for specific?
Yes, yes.
I was wondering if we want to be able to build a container for that actually works with multiple vendors, then maybe we want to install more than one or maybe all of the dependencies.
This supports it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it possible to install
well,
all optional?
until the requirements collide with each other, which I
That
think
would be
happens
probably-
somewhere, but yeah.
So there's labels associated with each of the backends that I put in the setup.conf. So there's like one for HPE 3par, HPE left hand, there's EMC VNX, VMAX. So if you want to install multiples of them, you just provide a list on the command line and it installs all the dependencies for those individuals.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if you can install all of them without specifying all of them. I mean, just say install
I
all
would
of
just
them.
make it all.
Yeah, I mean, driver requirements was supposed to be installable, so you can just install it, reinstall -r driver requirements, and then you can get a container with everything. And if you remove them from driver requirements, now it's not possible. So I'm thinking maybe we should release driver requirements and just to make sure that all the packages there are installable, and then it will be possible to.
I think you can add an all label and just include all the dependencies in there
Actually,
too.
there's somebody to do that in the setup config, right?
Yeah.
There's some Oslo project that does this modular setup config thing already.
The PBR. Well, yeah.
That's blue ribbon.
That's a good point.
I think right now there's a problem with containers for every vendor because it makes you, it sort of causes a vendor locking because if you want to use multiple vendors, you just can't. Right? You have a container for specific.
Well, the way Cola's building the images is they have a Cinder volume image for every backend. NFS, Ceph, LVM, they have a specific image for each of those.
Glance Store already does this.
Glance Store?
Yeah. Does it work?
I'm not 100% sure.
Because they have Glance Store extras for VMware Swift Cinder.
Yeah, I saw Swift does it and Glance does it. That's where I verified how I was getting this to work.
I mean, I think it's a good idea. I don't know if we should delete the driver requirements stuff or not, because I don't know. The theory was I was writing that there because somebody would script it into like an RPM build process, but I have no idea.
And consume it that way. Okay.
I don't know if anyone did that.
Yeah, before that, we just didn't know at all.
And actually, our
Yeah.
RPM build processes can consume the setup config stuff anyway if you set them up right, so it might not matter.
Okay.
We need to check that.
Mhm. So I guess one thing to look for when doing reviews for new drivers is that if they have an external library dependency that they get added into there.
So we always look for that, and we also still need to always look for them checking and doing the kind of try import and then throwing some sensible message if it's not there instead of
Yeah.
blowing up. Because I've had to catch that in a lot of drivers.
Mhm.
Nobody thinks to do that.
So slightly off topic, when I was reviewing the RSD driver, I noticed that they're putting their exception in the driver file itself.
Mhm.
Traditionally, I think we've been moving all of the driver-specific exceptions into exceptions.py.
Well, we actually decided we were going to do the opposite.
Were we going to start doing it differently now?
I don't know, I don't remember making a decision, but it was that way, and then Eric said, no, put it over in this other
Well-
one, and I said, either one's fine.
So we always put them in the cinder-wide exceptions thing because everyone had always done that, but there's no reason for them to be
Yeah,
there.
they're
Like
not-
they should
Yeah.
really just be in the driver where no one else has to care about them. There's not really any reason to have them all in the same file because it doesn't.
But having them split, part of them in the driver and part of the file, it doesn't seem that.
The unit tests already include the driver, so the exceptions are going to be there. I think people were thinking originally at the time that if something else wanted to throw that exception, they would have access to it, but that doesn't even make
I
sense.
mean, I don't think there's really any reason to have them in there. And
It does make it a little easier when we deprecate and remove a driver that everything's contained and you don't have to remember, oh yeah, there's some other stuff over here.
Mhm.
I don't really care either way.
Yeah.
well, I don't feel super strongly about it, but I would definitely not go out of our way to tell people to put them in the global file.
Okay.
It's just more cruft in there that you're loading for drivers you're not even using.
Well, it wouldn't be too terribly difficult to migrate those exceptions out.
I think
As
we
well.
were doing that. I think we started an effort to do that at one point. I don't remember what
Okay.
happened to it, but we decided to do that like a couple of years ago, I think. And
Okay.
maybe we just never actually did it. but-
Completed it. Yeah. Okay. If we ever want to remove drivers from tree, then it's even easier. Because there's no code in the main center code base. All right, that's all I had.
Last thing on here was passwords in cinder.conf/oslo.config.
I think we mostly covered that already earlier. The code exists. We hope it works. It's a feature that people want. So you can put it to do on me to go poke at that if you want to put on somebody. Because this came up downstream. The Manila guys were interested in this a little while ago as well.
Where are they going to store the passwords at?
The passwords for cinder.com. Kind of thing.
Not storing them in center.com?
Right. So there's an Oslo config driver that'll let you store them in like Barbican, and it fixes the whole thing that customers always complain about, plain text passwords that are not in there.
In center.conf, yeah.
How do you store the access credentials for the puzzle?
Well, I'm not sure because that's the whole tricky part is the Oslo config driver has to have enough loaded to know how to talk to Barbican, which is presumably going to happen with the Cinder service token probably.
And before even the Cinder service really starts up.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It has to start up like some and then go load all this stuff before it starts up backends and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, my assumption has been that we would do this purely for like backend driver credentials to start with and not things like, you run into like weird chicken and egg problems if you want to try to do it with like your MySQL password or something. Because I think you'll fail before
Yeah.
you even get booted up enough to go find the thing.
Yeah.
But I think doing it, since we have separate config sections for backends, I think we just basically need code that for each backend config section loops through and it looks for any config values that have whatever magical property they have that indicates that they're like a Oslo config Castellan.
The limited documentation on that Castellan driver doesn't say anything about being able to do some in local and some in not. It looks like you just set where the config is, so I'm not sure. how that
It may be that you have to put it in like a separate file kind of thing and then
There is, you said a Castellan.conf and a mapping file. I don't know what that mapping file is, but maybe that mapping file that has some indication of if you're looking for this config option,
Yeah.
go here, whatever.
And that's the thing is I think the Oslo guys or the Castellan guys or somebody have made this, but I don't know that anybody's gone and figured out how to actually consume it in Cinder. I assume it's in some shape that is useful for us. I hope so.
So is this to hide passwords and users rather than just putting them in the config file?
Yeah, I mean, the number one case for it is hiding like your SAN credentials.
Okay.
So that they're not holding on in plain text. There's probably other cases that it would be handy too. But that's the big obvious one that everybody wants.
And most of the SAN credentials are for admin or root access on the SAN,
Yeah.
usually.
And we've honestly been getting requests for this in our product since like Ice House. I'm kind of glad that we have an idea that we might actually finally be able to do it.
Yeah.
There's a whole different problem about whether we actually will have Barbican sitting around, but that's a triple problem. And I keep saying Barbican because that's the one I care about, but it could be other Castellan backends too. I think for Cinder, it shouldn't really matter which one you're actually using.
So you're gonna look at that some more.
Yeah, I need to just go sit around in a DevStack environment and try to like make this actually work and see what happens. Because I don't think I've heard reports that anyone has ever actually done that. So, that's the main next step I want to see. Yeah.
So I imagine there's some process of how you get your credentials in Castellan first before you even bring Cinder up the first time.
So presumably you would run OpenStack secret store and pass it in, and then that would give you a reference for how to get it later.
Okay.
And then you create the mapping file with the configuration option name and ID or
I see.
That'll be interesting if we have to do it for all the different
and drivers. It looks like you have to have a different,
that'll be
you have to have
kind
a
of
unique
nice.
secret for each.
For each one. Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
So you have to have a mapping file that's got a list of all the configuration options you want to hide, and then an ID for each one of those. So each one needs to be created as a separate secret in Barbican before you start running.
Well, that's basically a lookup table.
And we'll have to make sure that when you store it in Barbican, that you store it with, I guess the Cinder service user is going to be the one that has to talk to it, which is not going to be the same credentials as your normal admin or whatever.
Yeah.
So we'll have to make sure we write down, like, make sure it ends up owned by this thing and all that. It seems like a great idea. We just need to go flesh out how to actually use it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we're gonna have to go convince our deployment tools to write all the config files for us this way. It's gonna be a whole other project.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of too. Like,
And chase down the backends that break when you change the password. Which is the current active issue. For at least one of them.
I presume you could use the same key for multiple values?
I don't know. I would think.
'Cause-
So I would be surprised if you couldn't.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it just says it'll use the IDs to fetch the value, so. Use change me for everything.
Is it an ID or is it like the whole Barbican like href thing?
It just says Castellan ID. So I'm just.
I think that just means it's a string that could look like anything.
Yeah.
I don't think it is a EU ID. I think it might be, well, maybe it is.
Is it about lunchtime yet?
Yes. So we've gotten through, you done on that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So we've gotten through quite a bit. Should we break for lunch a little bit early? And reconvene in room 203 at 1:30?
Sweet.
That room is much bigger for.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes?
Mhm.
Okay. Sean?
Is lunch
Torchies?
available now?
Oh, I think there is a lunch here too,
There is a lunch here too, but
but it's
Torchies.
not Torchies.
Where's
Oh, Torchies.
I was gonna get an Uber. It's like a 6-minute ride.
I mean, we did have to do it at some point.
Yeah, it is a Cinder thing.
Uber's on me if you guys want to come.
We have a really big Uber.
Pull up on the
Well,
school
I
bus.
mean, the people who just got excited.
No.